time is 6 o'clock. I think we can go ahead and start. Everybody is in attendance. Do we have any oral communications?
None.
Thank you. We can go ahead and move on to the approval of minutes. So review and approve minutes for the December 11, 2025 meeting.
I move to approve.
Second. John's going. Okay. So it's approved 4-0, and Cigar Benel is going to abstain.
Thank you. We can go ahead and move on to current business. We have updates by the City of Escondido. Robert will be presenting.
Thank you. I have two quick updates for you. The first update is I wanted to let you know that the LS&S contract extension for 2 years was approved by the City Council at the December meeting, so that will be moving forward. And the next update I wanted to provide you was with regard to the renovation project. I have some specific items here I wanted to go over. The roof right now is 95% complete, with the only areas of the roof not being complete have been left open as walking pathways for staff to be able to complete the flat roof alcove areas that they are currently working on to make some adjustments so that water won't be flowing into the building. So they have to make some adjustments there. The plumbing is 100% complete, and as a result of that, along with all of the approvals, we are starting drywall. Drywall was started the week before Christmas and is continuing at this point. The electrical is about 50% complete roughly, and then the sprinkler system is 95% complete. The sprinkler or fire suppression system will remain at 95% until basically the final approval for testing, and that won't come until just before the completion of the rest of the renovation projects. Let's see. The windows right now, so you may recall that back in the September or October meeting, I apologize for not knowing this, the City Council approved an additional budget adjustment of about $870,000 to be able to complete all of the windows at the library, not just the ones that are being covered by the grant itself. Right now, those windows are currently on order, and installation should begin within the next 30 days, which will be really nice. So, and that is all the information I have at this point.
Sorry. Robert, on the first item on the extension of the LS&S contract, did they just extend the contract as is, or is it given the okay to go ahead and renegotiate it?
It's just an extension as is. Well, when I say as is, there was a 3% for each year of cost escalation.
Or what?
Just for the operations. It was not as a result of, and I know your interest is the collections budget. It did not include an escalation to the collections budget, unfortunately.
Okay, that is insane. Reno, how far back did the $250,000 a year go? You had a report a couple of months ago. So either the city or the city plus the library board or somebody kept the budget at $250,000 for at least the last 10, 15 years. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And we think that's okay to continue something that was $250,000 let's say 12 years ago, and continue that for another 2 years? Is that what was decided?
It is my understanding that the collections budget is going to be spoken about through the budget process that will be beginning within the next month.
Okay. So last time, it wasn't you, okay, I'm not
I understand.
Someone at City was saying, oh, we can't do anything with the collection budget, it's in the contract. Well, obviously, LS&S isn't going to complain about an increase in the collection budget.
Yeah. Again, the conversations that I've had with my director and the city manager's office is the conversations about the collections budget is to be had during the budget process, which will be starting in February.
Okay, I wish I known things were moving that quickly. That contract has no cancellation for convenience clause in it, which is insane for a service contract affecting the populace of this city for the amount of money that we're spending.
I don't know the details about the cancellation of the contract.
Well, it's not. It's called cancellation for convenience because when you have a service contract, I handled contracts at Pacific Southwest Airlines. We had 18 stations when I left, and we probably had at least 10 contracts in each station's security service, cleaning service, field delivery. All of them were services. So how do you quantify the performance of someone on a service? You can't. You can't. You just get into an arm-waving, shouting contest if you're complaining about service. If you have cancellation for convenience, either party can cancel a contract on whatever it takes, weeks, months, half a year notice, without giving any reason whatsoever.
Most all of our contracts include that.
Yeah.
The last time I looked at one of the previous contracts, I thought it did, but it was 180 days. But I could be wrong. I can get you that information if you'd like.
Yeah, I would, because I looked at the contract and I didn't see any cancellation for convenience clause in the contract.
It may not be specifically referred to as that, but I will get you and the rest of this board that information.
Because LS&S, as they currently operate, are fantastic, but they're a private company and private companies can be sold. And the person taking over the private company can do things that will not make you happy. I've dealt with that, so enough said.
Thank you for that, Robert. So when you talk about the budget discussions that are going to be in the upcoming month, what does that entail? And if we wanted to attend, if these are meetings or what have you, how could we assist those so that we can kind of see what those conversations are about?
Absolutely. Those are internal conversations. We had a citywide leadership meeting on Tuesday, and they've indicated to us that the budget process will be changing this year, as it has been the same in previous years. We will be notified as what that's going to look like. They told me within the next couple of weeks, so I will have more information within that period of time.
Great. Will you be able to update us at the next meeting?
Absolutely.
What that process will look like? Okay. Thank you.
Would it be helpful as the board to provide some kind of recommendation to whoever that we are requesting a collection budget, or is that loud and clear already?
I think you all have provided a very clear direction for us to request that monies. However, if you'd like to punctuate that additionally, we could definitely do that.
I would like to advise that we request formally, Maribel, if you would help to send that email. And who would we send it to?
You could send that to myself as the staff liaison to the Library Board of Trustees.
Okay.
And I will share this with my director and then the city manager's office.
What would you recommend is like a target timeline to get that to you?
I would definitely need it before the end of January.
Got it. Thank you.
Reno, would you mind emailing that presentation you gave to me?
Oh, sure.
Or maybe to all of us?
Mhm.
Okay, it's a good starting point.
Let us know if you need help with writing that email, Maribel.
Great, thank you, Robert. Next, we'll move on to item number 3, the Brown Act updates for 2026, and that is presented by Reno.
I will be looking over at Serena since I am not the resident expert on the Brown Act. I think our main goal with tonight's it's more of a refresher and just being aware that everybody should have received a copy of the 2026 Brown Act. Is that correct? Okay. So that's one of the things we have to do is a mandatory distribution, from what I understand. I think for us, there hasn't been too many changes, but the one I think I wanted to highlight in particular is one that we could run into trouble with, which is the social media rules. So I'm just putting it right now on the screen. So under the board rules for the Brown Act, if we are, say, on Facebook, because I know some of you are on our social medias, either on Facebook, Instagram, what have you, that under the Brown Act, you all are still welcome and encouraged to use social media, but you can't respond to one another's posts. So that includes things like liking. Correct. Especially if it's something related to the library. So, for example, we post something on the library website or the Facebook. If one of you comments on it, another one of you, I don't think, can comment on it. Is that right, Serena?
It probably depends. Well, you just don't want to because, then it starts to be like a serial meeting where you've commented on his, she's commented, they've commented, and you all are here commenting on the same. It's such a broad with social media. We like to just say, don't like anything of each other's. It's not just your individual pages, but if you have it's more like council would have like a couple different pages or something like that. So it's just something to be aware of. It's like how we're like, sure, you can go to a meeting all together, but you don't want to really hang out together, right? Even if you're not saying anything.
And it's mostly related to official business that might come up for discussion here. And since a lot of library things end up coming here for discussion, that's where we just want to make sure you're cautious.
Because it's also as if like I have a page and you comment on my page on a specific post, John comments on that post and you comment on that post, it's the same thing. So it's not really specific, like you said, Virginia, only to your specific page. It's kind of just to be aware. And like you said, there's probably topics that you know. And I don't know how the feed works, like when it disappears, but I mean, once it's out there, right?
And it's just more of a just be careful. And if you're unsure, probably don't like. Or you can always reach out to myself or the clerk's office if you're really wanting to comment or reply and you're not sure. I think we're available for guidance and we can double check. But usually it's probably better safe than sorry is the approach. I think if you had a chance to read through the updates, there wasn't much else, I think. Serena, is there anything we want to just do a quick refresher?
Zach's going to put together a whole training on, like the public comment and all that kind of stuff. But no, as long as you guys got the Brown Act, if you're not sure, I can send a copy of it just to make sure. But did you get one? Okay, you guys did all go, okay.
It looks like we're good. I would also mention if there's any questions, like if you're unsure as you're looking through the guide that you want us to clarify, we can prepare that for when Zach has that training. Because there's a lot to cover. I'm still learning the Brown Act, and that's coming from a state that also had a very similar sunshine law, and they're still different. And how everything manages and what is expected is a little bit different.
I just have a quick question. Maybe it's for future guidance, but with the social media, the like or dislike, it doesn't mention anything about sharing the same post because there are a lot of nuances within different platforms now. So I see repost another board member's content, but if you reposted something that the library had posted and multiple people on the board had shared that same content.
Like sharing a library
just
post?
Even like an innocent thing, like an event, like with like a concert, for example, at the library. I'm curious to know if you're promoting the library, is that a violation of the act? No.
No, I wouldn't.
I was going to say, and I know it's so broad, so if, and it's such a newer law, kind of, too. Even in our world, it's like a strange kind of, like you're saying, that's a good question. But no, you're just promoting it. If you're putting it and you're sending it out, nobody else is like commenting or whatever, so you're just sharing those kind of things. And this so rarely comes up.
Yep.
But it's just like kind of snowballed with all the social media, I guess.
Yeah, I just am wondering, like, because part of our responsibility is to advocate for the library on behalf of the citizens, and sharing it seems like the right thing to do.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That was basically all I had for the Brown Act.
Thank you, Reno. I think we can go ahead and move on to item number 4, discussion of new stacks, overview, and initial plans.
All right, so this is the things I actually do know. So I did provide a printout just to help, as it might be a little bit difficult to see on the screen. Let me just scooch down. So this isn't included in the printout, but it is included in the packet. This is just the blank layout that Ed, the project manager, and Yamada, the vendor for the stacks, provided. So you can see this is floor 1 with stacks. I'm going to say stacks, but interchangeable with bookshelves. As a refresher, the stacks in the upper northeast corner, right above the service desk, which is this circle, these are 66-inch high floor mounted models. To the left, right in the center, where it says co-working space and where my cursor is, these are shorter 42-inch models, also floor mounted. We jump over, and then we've got the bulk of the stacks. These are, again, 66-inch tall, floor mounted, so anchored stacks. These are the bulk of the stacks here on the first floor. And lastly, we've got a couple of wall-mounted shelves. Here on the far left, these are all 84 inches and are wall-mounted. And same with over here on the lower right, where it says option A, those are also 84 inches and wall-mounted. I'm going to just scooch down to the second floor. On the second floor, there are only 2 sections of stacks. The core stacks here in the middle, these are also 42 inches tall, so these are short stacks. And as you might recall, in one of our prior meetings, Ed, the project manager, informed us that while we wanted 66-inch tall stacks, due to the flooring and how it's been made, the engineers and the stack consultant told us that we could not do 66-inch tall stacks. We had to go down due to weight and quake restrictions that had changed since our original stacks were in place. And you'll see how that impacted us in the next section when I start talking about where collections are going to go. Because obviously we lost a lot of shelving by decreasing the height. The last stacks I'll mention are on the far left against the wall. These are kind of half wall height stacks. These are around 54 inches, and these go right up to where the mural on the wall is. The goal was to not cover any part of the mural, but to use as much of that wall space as possible. And so that's what those stacks are. So that's just the stacks. These are all stacks that are covered by the grant and the funding that is being provided through that now. Today, what I'm looking forward is for your input and suggestions on any of our recommendations currently as far as what I'm showing on the screen and what I printed out for you, which is how we plan to fill the stacks with our existing and future collections. And we'll get into the math a little bit if you so choose, but generally, our goal is to have the most popular collections closer to the service desk and to our self-checks. We also wanted to be mindful that our new teen space, which is enclosed in the northeast corner over here, we wanted the teen materials to be near the teen space. That's why right now we're recommending having the teen corner in this like bright blue nearest the teens, followed by teen graphic novels. So these are comic books, manga, etc., and this bright green here. Following along with the idea that we want something close to our self-checks, which are against this wall, that's where we're placing our holds. So this is when you place a reserve, you want to go pick it up. It's right there, easy for self-service or check out at the desk. Our new items are some of our most popular, so we also want to keep those near our self-checks and the service desk. And basically the first thing you see, just like if you're shopping in the supermarket, you want the popular items up front. That's why you put our new items here. The low shelves, because they're going to be easier for people to see visually, and we'll be doing a lot more displays on top, we wanted to include collections that are visually attractive and engaging. So our graphic novels tend to be the most visually interesting. So that's why both teen graph and then after a jump over sci-fi, adult graph are near each other. There's also a lot of overlap in the users. A lot of adult readers that are interested in graphic novels will also read the teen graphic novels and also read teen fiction. And there's a lot of overlap between those audiences. Similarly, sci-fi is one of our more popular genre fiction collections and also happen to be one of the ones that fit nicely in that range. So that's why we're using it as a buffer between teen graph and adult graph to allow a little bit of distinction between the two collections while maintaining that interest level nearby. Jumping over, we see fiction here in the magenta or pink, followed by mystery. And then one of my goals was to make Spanish more visible. So we placed Spanish facing the cafe in an area we expect will be high traffic, from the co-working area down to the restrooms and also to the cafe. So we all have Spanish fiction followed by Spanish nonfiction and the various Spanish collections right after that, biographies, graphic, etc. Mirroring Spanish, we wanted large print to also be visible and accessible. So we're putting that again facing the cafe. This is a large print fiction followed by the genre fictions in large print, which are Western and mystery, followed by, in this darker brown, the nonfiction. Then following large print nonfiction, we start with regular nonfiction in this blue, ending up with biographies. And then when we start hitting these grays, these are our extensive DVD collections, starting with, if I remember correctly, it's nonfiction, followed by TV in this dark gray, and then fiction. Along the walls, we have audiobooks in pink. So it's audiobook fiction, and there's audiobook nonfiction, and some of our other smaller audiobook collections, and ending up with some of our niche or specialty print collections being our local authors in this bright green, and our world languages collections, which are fairly limited. Last but not least, periodicals, our magazines and newspapers are here on this wall. Again, being able to serve both the co-working space and then down in the cafe. We thought that would be a good way of placing periodicals for those readers. The second page, which I won't go into, but I will mention, this is how we do the math. We have a count of how many items. We know how many linear inches. So wherever you see LI, it's linear inches. I then translate that into shelves. Each shelf is 36 inches, and we then deduct 6 inches approximately to give us 30 inches per shelf. This allows us room for having a little bit of leeway in case that shelf grows or decreases. It also allows for display at the end of the shelves as needed. So the overall linear inches are always deduced by around 20% to allow for that little window. Wherever you see on these papers and my presentation faces, these are called different things, but it's just that unit with, when you're facing it, how many shelves. I'm just calling it the face, the book face. It's also called a range, but that can also mean other things. The good news about this first floor is that all the collections fit and there's room for growth, which I'm happy with. I was a bit worried, but the first floor is looking good. I have no concerns as far as fitting and still having some room to wiggle around on this first floor.
I have a question. I realize this doesn't cover the entire first floor, it just covers the stacks.
Yes.
I'm seeing 2 pretty good-sized study rooms. What happened to the smaller ones that we had you were in
The
the other plan.
pods, I have good news on the pods when we get to the director's report. I'll preview now, we got funding from the Friends of the Library, the Friends of Literacy, and then funding internally through my operations budget and the literacy grant to cover all 7 pods currently that we needed. And so.
I thought there was room in the grant to get those, no?
The grant could not cover them because they have to be attached to the building.
Yeah, I thought, but the plan was to just make them out of sheetrock and glass and attach them to the building.
That,
Reno, can I jump in here
Yes.
really quick? So we had to make a couple of choices. For us to be able to actually build in those study pods, we would be losing the ability to create the tween space upstairs in the children's library. So as a result, we had a conversation with Reno to see if he would be willing to talk to the support organizations for the library. They very graciously decided to donate money to be able to purchase those particular pods. That allowed us as the city to be able to finalize and complete the tween space on that second floor. Because unfortunately, we were running very close to our budget, and it didn't look like that was going to be able to make it in this, the construction.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
and I'll show more of that later. Now, before I move on to the second floor, are there any comments or concerns, suggestions for this first floor?
I just wanted to add that this is very thoughtful in terms of how everything's laid out. And then I just had a question about the previous layout to the new layout. Are there more or less stacks? Is there a percentage connected to that?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. Just looking at things, the total number of linear inches has decreased, but it's a better match with what our actual holdings are currently. So we, as you might recall, there were stacks in the center section, which is now all co-working, and they were taller and bigger than what we are planning for now. But like I mentioned when we started, this first floor exceeds what our current capacity is, and it's much closer to what we actually need. And my answer would be, yes, we decreased it, but it's a better fit, and we still have room given what we have here on the screen.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks very well planned and well thought out. I've never seen it done this way before, and it's great. It's great. What are all the little circles with dots in the middle?
So I have to use the PDFs and files that I get from Ed and some of our other project partners. What we're seeing here is kind of a top-down. Those little circles are lighting elements, so there'll be circular light fixtures. I don't have a rendering of those with me, but that's what those are. It's just the best view that we had for the stacks that I could work off of.
Are those kind of like an Archie thing then?
They're kind of smaller versions of what we see above us, kind of
Okay.
like little floating circles, LED circles. They drop down kind of like pendants.
Hmm.
All right.
Thanks, Rena. Real quick, along that back wall, because I know on the, kind of up, if you go up a little bit, where, kind of where the DVDs and fiction, along that wall, I think those were like other study rooms,
Yes.
right? And
So-
then what's going to be on the other half of that wall?
You mean over here?
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of windows
Yes.
along that wall. Are there going to be any stacks, or is that just going to be left open?
What these areas right in front here, right, ignoring the door, but in between here, this is where we're planning on putting at least 3 of the study pods. So the 2 people study pods. Essentially, you can imagine 1, 2, 3, and then we have a 4th one that I'm working right now with the architect to find whether it'll make sense to put it here on the corner or somewhere else on this first floor. But that's why it looks a little empty here. Those are going to be for the pods.
Okay, and what about the other half of that wall?
On the other side,
So if you just kind of keep going, so like above the
Up here?
teen graphic and the teen area, yeah. Yeah, all
over
around
here.
that area.
On this far west or eastern wall,
The north
north.
wall.
Up here, That is the entrance to the teen space, and in front of it, from what my memory tells me, it's some seating, and then you hit very quickly the computers.
Got it, okay.
You can kind of see here where you can see two chairs on a rectangle. That's the very tip of the row for the computer spaces, or two computer rows or columns.
And relative to the number of computers we had accessible before the construction, are we going to have this about the same amount, or is that going to change?
It is going to decrease.
Okay,
It's better matching the use that we were seeing, the trends. It's about half the number of computers, and I'm working right now with Robert and the city and IT to kind of finalize our IT and equipment plan. My longer-term goal and vision is that we'll be moving more towards laptops to make up that difference. Because we wanted to offer laptops to make use of the fact that we are giving more seating and open space. And so since we're doing that and we have much more Wi-Fi capabilities, we don't want to just limit the public's use to those designated workstations. For some people, that's still what they prefer because it's slightly bigger than a laptop. But for others, we wanted to give that flexibility to really make use of the renovated space throughout the building. And so that's where we're trying to move towards laptops as we start envisioning these IT discussions.
I think that sounds great. And these would only be for use in the library,
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Reno.
Just also commenting that this looks great. Appreciate the intentionality of the user's experience and obviously having things match where those groups are, like the teen section, where periodicals are near the study pod. So thank you. And I also appreciate the color coordination.
I was running out of colors. I'll mention that. Any other questions for the first floor? Because second floor gets a little tricky. Okay. So for the second floor, similar, but what you'll note is that there are some things on the screen that weren't in the plan diagram that we received from Ed. So what does that mean? It means that picture books and graphic novels for kids will have to be on mobile shelving. And why is that? I'll get into it in just a second, but just so you know why there's a discrepancy between the grant-funded planned stacks and what you're seeing here in our recommendation. Ignoring that, first, when we come in, picture books are still our most popular collection for children and overall most popular collection in the library. So these are first thing you see and most accessible. It's also near our toddler and little one area here in the corner. Following that same idea, our early readers are here in purple, the first thing you see, kind of sandwiching our youngest and intended audience for that, picture books and early readers. The pink here are some of our other early reader materials. So these are our board books, concept books, that kind of material. This bright blue here, mirroring the picture books. So this is our holiday picture book collection, which is also popular, especially around holiday times. Again, mirroring our first floor experience with Spanish, I wanted to bring that closer to the front and make it more obvious. So we put Spanish right after our most popular collections, our early readers and concept. So this is all Spanish, so that includes Spanish picture books, concept, board book, and nonfiction, along with the biographies, some of our smaller sub-collections in Spanish. Followed by that in blue, we have our nonfiction for children's, then green, our biographies. Before we start in this yellow, our fiction collections. And lastly, on the walls, we have our very small magazine collection for children, audiobooks, and DVDs for children along this wall. The picture books, we currently have 8 mobile shelves that we purchased through a grant. But as you can see, if we didn't have the mobiles also for graphic, we would have to be sacrificing some space elsewhere for graphic. And we're going to get into the calculations in just a bit. But essentially, when we're looking at children's, I'm going to jump ahead just a bit. We had an available, as provided by the grant, we had around 14,000 linear inches of space. The current all children's items, the current linear inches would be 17,000. So that's a difference of 3,000 linear inches that we'd be missing. We currently have a few extra because of the mobiles. We have, let's see, here we go, 1,400. So 10% of the collection would be held on mobile as is. But that's inclusive of what our total is. So we still have a deficit of 3,000 linear inches. So what do? We will need at least 10 more mobile shelves, mostly to house our children's graphic collection. And then at a minimum 1, but really for growth and stability, 2 more shelves for our children's picture book collections. And so I'm just gonna go back to the map. So this is what's represented here in the green. These are the 10 mobile shelves for graphic. And these are the 8 plus 2, I think it said 2. Yeah, 2. Again, another 10 total for picture books. So that's where we are right now. Now, depending on what we decide here, if you think, the trustees, if you would like to offer funding for this, that's an option. The Friends of the Library have offered to cover up to close to $90,000 worth of additional funding. So they could, in theory, also purchase these for us. I'm happy to work with them and make that ask, but I did want to bring it to your attention that unless I find these extra shelves somewhere, we will have to reduce the collection somewhere, and I don't think that's going to be needed. I do think one of our support groups would be willing to cover it, but without that, we would be at a deficit for shelving. We could always, of course, cut things, but that's not something I want to do or something I would recommend we do. But I did want to bring this, just that this is what we're looking at for shelving on the children's floor. But otherwise, as is, it's going to be close. When I'm doing the math here, the ideal is to be able to house everything that we own. That's not possible with the children's items. Thankfully, because they're so popular, there's some of these collections that are 50% or more checked out at any one time. So we can bake that into the calculations. And that's where you see here in my table, current linear inches max. So this is accounting for all the items that we own currently. The minimum is what we have on the shelves. So, and then the averages, we're finding a middle ground, and that's where I'm targeting our shelving is, all right, in between what we typically have checked out and what we have in total, what's the middle ground? If we have that, we should be okay. Now, there might be some times where we have to wiggle things around, but that's something normal in libraries. We do that pretty often, is the shifting. But we are going to be close with children's as far as it's going to look very full, is what I'll say. Any questions?
Before we get into this, the shelves, where'd the new desk go?
The desk is not pictured in this one. This one was just for the stacks. I'm working with the furniture vendor right now to decide whether they can provide the desk or if I have to go with another vendor that specializes in circulation desks for it. It's all within the same budget that the foundation provided us, up to $105,000. Okay. So I don't expect needing to ask for any more for the desk.
Okay. So I'm assuming the mobile shelves get around the problem of floor loading. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
And if you're curious, the cost of all the shelves, I'm estimating around $15,000, a little bit less once I learn whether they include shipping. But that's approximately what the cost is going to be.
Okay, and the way things are going, you wouldn't need this stuff until June?
Yeah, we have some time.
Yeah.
That's for the 10 shelves that you're.
10
Yes,
shelves.
correct.
And then is the 10 shelves to accommodate for that maximum that we need, or is it for the average?
It's for the average. I don't think there's any way with the current heights that were restricted with the shelves to accommodate the maximum, which would be everything. That being said, children's has historically been underweeded, so there are a lot of duplicates, especially in fiction, and our nonfiction could use some updating, so getting rid of some of our older nonfiction. And longer term, we anticipate, for example, the DVD shelf to shrink pretty substantially as the years go by, especially our nonfiction DVDs. Those really don't circulate in children's. They barely circulate in adult, but there's still some use.
Real quick on my side, I don't remember the layout of the previous setup, but were the picture books in the past like right in that close to the entrance?
Some of them were.
Okay.
Historically, there was shelving kind of in these upper L, and that's where a lot of the picture books were, along with another shelf here that was lower. As of, I think, a year or two ago, we bought more mobiles and we transferred a lot of our picture books to the mobiles. That's why we had 8, to allow for the manipulatives and some of those play elements that we added through the Play for All grant. And that was cleared from this wall, and that's where that shift happened.
Yeah. And how tall roughly are those shelves?
The mobile shelves are about the same height as the floor shelves. They're 42 inches with three levels.
Got it. I'm just thinking like when the kids I've seen walk in the past, they are kind of overwhelmed by the awesomeness of the murals. I'm just wondering if the picture books would be blocking the kids' view from seeing everything.
I don't think so. And what's beneficial about the picture books and the graphic, or some of our most popular collections in children's being mobile, is if we need to, we can move them around and kind of reconfigure in the future.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
I would just like to comment, I know that the Library Foundation is passionate about supporting the children's program, and I think that we should give them the choice first to cover it. That way, any other funds that are needed outside of the children's program, we would still have that use of that money.
Just a couple other questions. So with the addition of 10 stacks, those mobile stacks, do you feel that we would have enough space for those stacks?
Yes.
Okay, 'cause I just want to make sure that we're not going to be like just trying to cram everything in there.
No, and for example, we could add some more in picture books, but I think that's going too far. I'd rather right fit it, and then if we need to grow, either grow by purchasing some more stacks in the future, or depending on how it works, there could be some collections that shrink, like I mentioned, the DVDs, and then we can shift things over and rearrange a bit later on.
Got it. And then I'm not sure if the topic about like the weight limit in the floors is impacting the reading room that I'm seeing there, because I'm noticing that there's like no library stacks there, and I think previously we did have books there. Is that because of the weight limit, or is that intentional for other purposes?
That one, it says reading, but it really is our new tween space. Again, because this isn't a model showing everything that we intend to be in the space, it's just the stacks. You're not seeing, we're hoping to have booths along this southern wall, and then a seating area here where there'll be a little TV for them to engage with, probably games, and then some more seating here near the entrance. So it's become more of a mini teen space where, again, like on the first floor, we don't have collections in the teen space because we wanted to be more of a social and study space, what have you. We also don't, when we do those types of spaces, even though this one's not enclosed, the best practice is to have the collections still outside, so that way if you want something, you don't have to go in and interrupt whatever might be happening there, which is why the graphic novels, which are the most popular for the tweens, are right outside the tween space.
Got it. Thank you. Sean, did you have something else? Did you have something else to say? Okay. Yeah, so I would agree with Virginia. I think that we should definitely ask the foundation first if they would be interested, and then I think from there we can see some of the other support groups would be able to pitch in. But prior to that, I know, kind of keep jumping ahead, but I'd be curious to know how much they are already contributing for those study pods before we do that ask.
Right, and I'll mention, I still don't have the full cost of the furniture for children's, but I do expect it to be under what the foundation has committed, the 105,000. It should be less than that, even with the desk, the staff desk. So there might be some funds left over to partially fund or fully fund these mobile stacks. I just had the numbers as of today, since I've had the time to finally do the calculations for all the stacks this week, or last week as well. And so it was at that point that we realized that we really did need more of the mobile stacks. So haven't had the time to really go and check to see, whether there'd be enough funds left over from the furniture purchase, and if so, how much, because that could all go towards this, as the foundation has already said they'd want to support this space, and that would would align well with that effort and that purpose.
Got it, yeah. So, yeah, I think it's great news if we're able to keep it under there. And I think definitely updating them about like what the new need is. Because I know John definitely wants to look at kind of itemized what exactly it is that we're ordering. Okay. Don't have any other questions. We can go ahead and move on to number 5, funding year 25-26 library collection budget and expenditures.
So we're halfway through the fiscal year, which covers our collection spending. So this is just my chance to update you on how we are collection spending wise. Again, as a reminder, as you all know, our collections budget is $250,000. What you see here allocated, it's less than that, it's 230, around 240. And that's because that other chunk goes towards it's book costs, but it's more processing, shipping, those add-ons from the book vendors. And if you're curious if there is ever extra in that, we typically, our practice is to, at the end of the year, ask for a credit either for Hoopla or Overdrive, our 2 e-vendors, and then we apply that to the next year. So there's never any surplus. We always spend the budget as we are contractually obligated to. And it all goes towards the collections, one way or the other. Currently, we're around 60% spent. I'll mention that we had to adjust some funds, mostly from our discretionary, which are the yellow accounts, to renew or really recreate our lease with a different vendor, because our prior vendor, as you recall, was Baker & Taylor, which went bankrupt and is no longer a company. So we're now working with one of our other vendors that has a lease program, but we did have to shift some things since some of that funding was still locked in with Baker & Taylor, and we're still working our way through that. As I mentioned before in prior meetings, even though we likely won't get those funds back, we did get to keep all of the materials that they sent to us, and that netted a positive benefit for us. So we're not too concerned about that loss of funding since we got to keep the items. Are there any questions about the overall budget? As you can see, we're pretty much on track to spend. Mostly I wanted to present this as a reminder so you could see the breakdown of how we spend across different collections, and which collections get the most and which get the least, as a matter of practice here in Escondido.
I just wanted to say that we've never seen this level of detail on the collection. It's very welcome to see this. In fact, all the things that you're doing and the planning is all very numbers driven, based upon experience, and it's great to see versus people just putting up a big number. Have a question on what's happening with Hoopla.
Yep.
You had a $16,000 budget. We've spent a little over $5,000. It seems to be the reverse of what you would expect to see.
That has to do with the way that Hoopla invoices and the way and the frequency we pay Hoopla. So the actual expenditure is closer to that 50, 60%. It's just when I ran the report, didn't take into account some of those pending invoices from Hoopla.
Okay, so we're on track to spend the full 16,000?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Reno, for providing that. We can move on to number 6, the staff report, potential use of library trust funds for collections.
So thank you. This, again, is based on the prior request from the board. I was directed to come up with a plan for how we would potentially spend an additional approximately 40,000, but it could be a little bit less depending on the board's decision for the remainder of this fiscal year. Essentially, our approach was to evaluate the collection and think about how we could best prepare for the return to the main library and treating this as a chance to refresh some of our collections that don't always get the most attention on our yearly budgeting cycle. You can see here the breakdown with nonfiction taking up the bulk of our allotment. And this is because our nonfiction is one of our older collections on average. It's also one of our biggest collections after fiction. But the problem with nonfiction is they tend to be more expensive on average than fiction, and they have to be renewed much more frequently. And so as a result, we tend to target nonfiction yearly spending on those items that need to be refreshed the most. So these are our medical, our legal, and our travel and computers. So those are kind of like the 4 that a lot of the refresh on our regular purchasing cycle targets. But that also leaves out a number of other collections that could benefit from refresh. And those tend to be sometimes the cooking, sometimes a little bit more on the self-help, but also just generally our other collections in nonfiction need a lot of attention to be brought up. And because we can't do that regularly on the year, after 5, 10 years, and some of these collections more than that, while the content might still be good, it might not be as relevant, and we start seeing a decrease in the checkouts and interest because while they might have been really good 20 years ago, they're not as interesting nowadays. And now we're also having to compete with the internet, which is more of the competition for nonfiction. Whereas fiction, a lot more people read that for leisure and want to get that physical book. So that's one of the reasons you can see nonfiction gets the most. Mystery is our most popular genre of fiction that we have as a sub-collection, followed then closely by science fiction. That's why it's also getting attention here. But you will note that large print got a lot. It's 11,000, almost as much as nonfiction, between large print nonfiction and large print fiction. And that's because on average, every year we give large print about $5,000. And just like with nonfiction, large print per item is much more expensive than the same title in regular print. So while a regular print title might average $20, a large print version might be $40 to $50. And so because of that, we, don't have enough money to really allocate to large print regularly, but also same thing, we have decades of having the same items without really refreshing those large print items. So that's the goal with this expenditure, is to bring up those large print to a more modern standard and bring in maybe some new authors. Last but not least, there's 2 items here. Children's holiday, similarly, very popular genre in children's picture books. If you go to the library during Halloween, all the Halloween holiday books are out, and they get a lot of use. So it's, again, refreshing those and hopefully expanding it a bit to meet it with that demand. And Hoopla, I'm proposing a approximately $400 per month increase to see what impact that has on the the Hoopla checkouts, given the fact that we still have the same caps on the monthly budget and the downloads that we changed. My goal with this, if we were to approve this, is to see if there's a sweet spot for Hoopla where everybody that wants an item gets it that month within the caps of the downloads, so that there's no people getting the message saying, you've reached the limit and get bounced. The only way we can really test that is by doing pilots like this to see if, with the number of card users that are using Hoopla, whether it's actually going to still have that effect, or we might find that regardless of how much money we have in Hoopla, we're always going to have people not being able to check out something. But I need a little bit of data to be able to tell you whether there is any point in increasing Hoopla in the longer term, or maybe there is a point, but I need a little bit of budget to test that out. And that would be my goal with this as a pilot. The rest of the report kind of breaks down the intended outcomes for each of these, as well as the implementation plan. And then we did consider alternatives, but I think more of a focused approach is what I would recommend for this infusion of funds, if that's what the board would like us to follow.
Can I ask a question? And I may be getting too far ahead, but I'm going to go back to the cafe as an example. Is the cafe like a potential revenue stream for the library, or how is that going to work?
At this point, I wouldn't consider it a revenue stream. There will be planned vending, but because we're not a very high traffic area, as much as I would like us to believe that we are, we're not like an airport where you would be bringing quite a bit of vending traffic. We'll have some, and the vendors might be able to tell us like an estimate, but it's going to be like less than a couple thousand a month. It's not something that could foreseeably provide much revenue. And then it's more of a question for Robert and city managers as to what happens with that revenue, whether they would earmark that for the library or if it would go to the general fund for other uses. That's something I can't answer.
Got it. Yeah, I would be curious to know how that whole thing will work with the cafe and whether that money will go back into the library, potentially for the stuff we're talking about with the collections here.
I don't have an answer to that right now. I do know that at the moment, the Community Services Department is running, just completed an RFP for vending services that was for our recreation facilities. We did include the library as a part of that, as an available option once we return, but that is at the discretion of the city to be able to move forward with that. That's where we're headed right now, but I don't have a specific response for you as far as where that funding would go at this point in time.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would consider that more of a service, a way to attract people. I wouldn't expect it to be much of a money source.
So I'd just like to request from the board any direction if you'd like us to have more information, or if you'd like to consider a vote on this matter. That's really where we're at right now.
Well, I think this is really well thought out, and you're focused on areas where there's a need. You're not just spreading the money around. So I like this a lot.
I have a question, kind of looping back to the budget discussions. If those conversations lead to an increase in the circulation budget, would that apply during the 2-year extension, or would that be after what comes during that 2-year extension?
So the budget process would be for fiscal year 27, which would start July 1 through June 30th. So that's what the discussion would be. It would not be able to start for the remainder of the current fiscal year, which goes through June 30th.
We're talking about starting July of this year.
That would be accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I'm asking is I'm a little hesitant on the Hoopla pilot increase because there was a high demand for it. We have taken, I think, a variety of different steps to try to manage that. But once we increase a cap, I think it's going to be a bit harder for us to come back from that. Because, I mean, it's possible that we've kind of managed with all the other actions we've taken where we're in that sweet spot, as you say. But it's also very possible that now we're getting more users using and we're still reaching those caps. And it's going to be about managing expectations come July 1st. If we're not able to secure an increase in the circulation budget, I just imagine that's going to be a pain point on the patrons' end.
Well, I see what you're saying, but if we have to cut the budget back and people complain, we can tell them to call City Hall.
Very valid point. I don't believe that this was included in our handout. Is it in the digital packet?
It is in the packet.
Oh, did I miss it?
I can resend it. It is on the website version now.
Okay. Page 12. Oh, maybe.
So you guys think we have enough information to vote on this?
I think we would make a motion to vote.
There's not really anything on this when we're voting. I think we just wants direction. So,
That would be for next.
yeah.
Okay.
And I'll note, but you don't have to make a formal vote. You can if you want to.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody else have any more thoughts on this?
Then my question would be, for next agenda, would you like me to put this as a voting item?
Or can we vote now?
I would just soon vote on it now, but that's,
If you guys are like, let's go ahead and do it.
Do we lose leverage with the collection stock if we throw this much in?
what do you mean?
Well, this is for this fiscal year.
Yeah.
And so this is like to cover for this year,
opening.
and then we're asking for next fiscal year.
So Reno would have 40,000 to use between.
Through June 30th.
Through June 30th.
Okay, through the opening.
And there's no changes to whatever right? You guys are okay with everything?
Yeah, I think that
Okay.
this is just like the proposed
Okay.
breakdown of it.
So I'll open the voting, and if you want to make a motion in a second, and then,
Motion, it would be a motion to
Okay, I vote to approve the $40,000 as described in this presentation.
a second.
I second.
Okay, and then the voting's open.
I lost my place.
That's okay. Do you want?
Home panel. One on, like one of these?
Oh, she's logged out. She's logged out.
Sorry. Refreshed it now? Okay. Okay, it's approved 5-0.
Just for a quick point of clarification, this money will be coming out of the trust, because I'm the one that has to go to council and get that done through the finance department. Okay.
Yes,
perfect.
trust.
Thank you.
But it's a one-time, Robert.
Yes, one time.
And it's
One time.
under 100, right? Because I think that was, or was that just for donations?
That was the donations,
Okay.
because anything over $5,000 for donations have to go to council. This still has to be approved by council, but I can get it on one of the upcoming ones. Reno will be prepared, so as soon as it gets approved by council, he can move forward with all those purchases.
Okay, perfect. And then can you keep us updated when you put that forth?
Yeah,
to
that
the
will
council?
likely be the first week of February.
Okay,
is
yeah,
when
so
I'll
if
be
you
able
could
to
just
get
send
it
us
in.
like an email or update on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And if you can just note, I mean, part of this is a follow-up of kind of months' worth of our discussion, and a lot of this is to help in preparation for the reopening. I mean, these conversations go back to the fall about this need, I mean, collections as a whole, which we need to address long-term, but, you know, this action was taken because in preparation for a lot of conversations we had related to the reopening and putting the best foot forward when everything
Yes.
is open.
I'll mention that the staff and the public will appreciate this generous contribution from the trust, and we'll make sure that we get what we all need for those collections.
Thank you, Renu, for putting all of that together and putting forth your action plan. We can go ahead and move forward to number 6, the staff report. Nope, the statistics report.
So I'll mention, my main takeaway from this month is I was very happy. Although the physical checkouts did decrease slightly, we have to keep in mind that the library was closed for a number of days in November due to the holidays. And so even though our total public service hours were less than October, we almost matched October's checkouts and visits. Honestly, we actually exceeded the visits. We were at 20,000 and we were at 20,700 for November. So this is a pleasant surprise. It shows that being in a place like the mall, we benefit from the foot traffic that the holidays bring, which is the opposite of what we would normally see at the downtown location, as we typically will see a dip November, December, as people are usually shopping or traveling. So that was, again, one of those benefits that we get from that foot traffic at the mall. Other than that, everything else has stayed consistent. I'm trying to see, but everything else that kind of dipped was more or less related to the fact that we typically expect that dip due to vacations, travel, and people doing other things than visiting the library during the holiday season. Are there any questions or concerns about the stats for November?
Why is the Pioneer Room in red?
We're still working on getting their accurate door count for the Pioneer Room. As I'd mentioned, that one was reliant on the automated handling machine that is by the same company that runs the gates, which is MK Solutions. And so we have a fix for this, but it's more about getting the techs around to fix it. And the total number we have other metrics we use for Pioneer Room, like collection access, and I also have physical people going in. I have a count of that, but it's typically less than the visits, as we get other visits that are more sporadic. We like to count everybody that comes in, even those that are using the restroom, so that tends to increase the count a little bit through the gates. But we do have that in the works as far as fixing that so we can get an accurate gate count for the Pioneer Room.
Just a comment on getting close to 100,000 on registered borrowers, which is exciting. I don't know if there's, a way to mark that milestone in a fun way. I don't know if real time, as borrowers are registering, are you able to see real time in the count that you're the 100,000 registered?
I don't know if our system would allow us to know in that moment whether they're the 100,000th
Okay.
registry. But we'll certainly know at the end of the month when we run the stats where we're at. So we'll likely have reached that, not in December, but probably the end of this month. We average around between 500 and 700 new registered users per month. So we're very close. So like the 2026 year would mark us going over our 100,000th registration.
Yeah, definitely just a milestone maybe worth shouting out or promoting.
Yeah, I second that. That would be a good PR push.
Awesome, thank you, Reno. We can go ahead and move on to the library director's report.
I'll keep this brief. I'm happy to report that in partnership with the San Diego Law Library, they've been able to work with their IT team to provide us 2 laptops and a hotspot that they manage. This relieves a lot of technical concerns and manpower issues from the city IT team, since the law library had very specific and very exacting needs for how we connect to their resources. And so being able to work with them to transition that to their own ownership and management will help us longer term to be able to grow that program and to duplicate it on their end. They used us as a test site, and so now that they know it works, they're able to then offer this at other locations, copying the method that we did here in Escondido for the law library. So I'm very happy with that. It lets us continue our partnership, and I was surprised to learn the amount of people that really rely on the law library access here in North County at our Escondido location. Surprisingly, a number of local lawyers use it since they don't want to pay for it and they don't want to travel down to the San Diego location. And there's also, of course, lay people and people just in general that want to do their own legal problems and solutions that rely on this access. So we're really happy to make it work. Even it took us a bit at the mall, but we got it to work. And then I'll just mention that this week I met with GM Interiors to try to finish up the orders for the furniture on the first floor and the second floor. The first floor is essentially done. We're just waiting for that final invoice so that way we can send that to the city for writing of a PO. The second floor is moving along, but they are behind on giving me models for the furniture in that space and prices, so that way I can then work with the city and the foundation to make sure everything stays on budget. Not included in here, which we've already discussed, was the news that the Friends of the Library offered and donated enough funds for 4 of those study pods. 2 of the study pods are being funded by the Friends of Library Literacy. And then the last pod to bring us up to the 7 that we required, that one is being funded through a combination of our literacy grant and library operations funds. And so that brings us up to the 7. There might be the option to get another pod for literacy using grant funds. Right now, my staff is working to see how much funding we have left over from the grants. And then the problem with that is that we also then have to go to the state to get approval for anything purchased over $5,000. The other funding that we're using for that first pod, that's already been used as overhead. So the grants allow for like a 10% of the grant to be used for overhead and administrative costs. So that can just be applied to anything. And so we're using that in combination with the ops funds to pay for that third pod. But a whole fresh pod and completely out of grants, that we have to get state approval from. So that was my last update that I wasn't able to include here. For highlights, December was very much holiday time, both at the library and throughout the community. I was very happy with one of our programs we had here up at the Pioneer Room. It was Santa by the Fireside. So this is one of our first cross-departmental programs where we had literacy staff, youth services, and Pioneer Room staff all working together to present this program. And so we had a number in attendance there in the Pioneer Room. We had Santa, mostly meeting with literacy families, but also was open to the community. And then a number of the people that were there also took the time to learn more about the Pioneer Room and the services there. I believe one of the attendees looked at their old high school yearbook, which of course we have collections of in Pioneer Room. And so it was nice to see a different type of program bringing in those different departments, because typically we do, Pioneer Room does its Pioneer Room programs, literacy does its literacy classes and outreach, and youth does our story times and outreach for schools. So this is an example of our push in admin to blend more of our programming to expose the community to the different services we provide. Adult services, again, making good use of the event space at the mall. Another good example of a partnership with the Waxiam Pumpkin Museum, again, highlighting our native tribes and traditions and heritage. That's been a goal of ours, is to bring more of that. So I was very happy to see this successful basket weaving workshop there at the mall, along with our cozy crafts. And last but not least, we've had a number of really good author talks up in the Pioneer Room. So I highlighted two of those. One was basically an encore from Halloween, which was the Fireside Frights. That reached capacity, so we had to redo it in December. And then we also had Latinos Built in San Diego, author Maria Garcia, again, highlighting some of our culture and local traditions and histories. That's, again, one of those goals and missions of the Pioneer Room. So I was very happy to see this type of program in attendance. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Reno. Definitely some exciting programming that we've had at the library recently. Next, we can move on to the trustee library use report. I think I picked on you last time, so
Okay,
pick on
I'll
Virginia.
go quickly. Family visited the library again, like they do pretty much on a monthly basis. We had an out-of-towner too, with the group, who thought it was so cool that the library was in the mall. So just continued to hear positive things as well from other people in the community about the mall space and how everything's going.
Also able to visit the library. I have quite a number of Libby checkouts as well currently. I appreciate, everything that is going on social media. That I do heavily engage with, including one of the things I'm currently reading was the kind of that year-end summary of the Second Tuesday Adult Book Club post. I thought that was really well done. So one of the 10 out of 10 recommendations is what I'm currently reading, that you should talk to someone book. So I just appreciate that content. I also see that there's new programming starting up now in the new year. So hopefully I can make it out to candle making at the end of the month. But just kudos and great job on that. I'll also highlight and shout out that I believe the library shared it, and that's how I came across it, but the recent Union Tribune article as well, highlighting all of the success at the mall location for the library. So great job.
My goodness, thank you. I've been using Libby for the month of December, so I had about 2 weeks off from work, and so I was able to get a lot of crafting done. And I can't put shows on because then I'm just like crafting. I'm just like looking at my tablet. So audiobooks were great to use via Libby. And then I have a colleague at work who is about ready to self-publish a book. And so I saw that we're going to have the annual writing competition. So I sent that his way and see if he will care to join that competition. And lastly, through the genealogy work that I'm still trying to get through, that motivated me to do like a cousin reunion. So I hosted one of those in December, so that was really nice to just kind of get together on one particular side of the family and kind of get to know each other a little better.
Well, tomorrow night we're watching the Twins, and so for my sanity, I'm going to take them over to the Children's Library on Saturday.
I visited the library on the 31st, and it was at lunchtime, and there was a balloon drop going. Oh my goodness, the traffic, was that hosted by the mall? Yeah, so the traffic that their events bring to the library, I mean, I was at both the bookstore and the library, and I like the staff. It seems like they're like we're working in a daycare. So it was very, very busy, but I really think that's a great partnership with the mall and the events that they host, and then all that traffic that comes in. It was crazy. I was like, I should have avoided this because I don't have kids. And so you have to have a lot of patience. But anyway, it was great. It was a lot of happy faces and excitement, and visiting the library at the same time for those families, so that was really good. And I have seen that there are like adult crafts that are being posted on social media for like every Saturday, or once a month on a Saturday, and that looks very interesting too, so I was glad to see that. Good job on that initiative.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I've been keeping my eye on those adult crafts, but it looks like they get booked very quick, because when I find out about them, the registration's already full, so one of these days I'll make it on the list. And so with that, the meeting is now adjourned. We will be meeting on February 12th at 4 p.m. Thank you, everyone.